Wednesday, September 6th. This is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the board will be moving to executive session for the discussion around medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person, matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person, an exempt subject involving legal advice from the school district's attorney subject to attorney-client privilege, an exempt subject involving a confidential student matter regarding a particular student. Can I have a motion to move to exec?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, the board will be back at approximately 7 p.m. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, September 6th, and this is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Can we all please stand for the pledge?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Great, good evening. The board has just returned from executive session. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda this evening? Can I have a second? Second. All in favor? All right, this is our audience comments section. Carmen, do we have anybody signed up from the public to speak?
We do not.
Okay, that's easy. All right, does anybody have anything to pull from the consent agenda tonight? No? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I don't know. Are there donations? No donations. Okay, they're on here. Moving along. All right, so that takes us right up to our presentations for the evening, and we're going to begin with Parent Square Overview by Ms. Vinita Joy, our Executive Director of Innovations and Technology. Did I get that? Oh, I said it backwards. Technology and Innovations. Same thing.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present Parent Square. Parent Square is our community hub of communication. So we started Parent Square about 3 weeks ago, I would say, mid-August. Really glad to hear that as of this morning, 44% people did register for Parent Square, so it's well on its way. I wanted to give just an overview for parents in general about how we're using the system, what it does, why we moved. So we had in our district, our SIS, Student Information System, which is Infinity Canvas messaging. We also use Constant Contact, which is a platform that we use to outreach our community. Infinity Canvas had students, parents, and staff in our district. It did not include the community, so that's why we had Constant Contact. Then I was getting more requests from people about Remind, which is a two-way platform that guidance counselors and others can contact students on both sides. Like they can send out a message, but also receive a message back from them, which Infinite Canvas couldn't do. So instead of adding a third platform to our district, we decided to go with Parent Square back in spring. We had a group of members that was put together to evaluate 3 different systems. And we decided to go with Parent Square because it was a more robust system that can do pretty much everything that we needed to at the time. So I'm going to log in as a parent, not a staff. The login is basically parentsquare.com. When you get to the sign in, you should have gotten an activation code through your email already. That email and phone number actually came from your information that was provided to us in Infinite Canvas. If you did not get a code, invitation code, please reach out or update your parent portal information. That's the email and the primary email and the phone number that we use to reach out to you. So I'm gonna log in as a parent. Once you log in, you kind of get questions asked like, is this really you? Is this your phone number? Is this your children? Is this your email address? Once you verify all that information, you'll be taken to the home page. So it has a really nice look and feel of a Facebook posting type of thing. So you would never miss a communication. If it's directed to you, you will always be on your app and you can just scroll through your messages. Your kids would be on the left side if you have multiple students. I just pulled in a couple of, we have Mother Connection contacts in the system, so I'm a parent of Mother Connection just for this example. So you can see that I have a child in Frank G. Lindsay School and also at Furnace Wood School. On the right side is where I really want to pay attention to under your account. We get a lot of questions about when you get the messages. We chose Parent Square for a reason because during the strategic plan, pillar 3 conversations, we were getting parents saying, we get a message from our elementary school, middle school, high school, different times. Parent Square has the ability to receive the notifications through a digest, which means at 6 o'clock at night. So if you, once everybody signs up and picks their preference, right now we're pretty much setting everything up instantly because people have not all signed up for the Parent Square. Once everybody reaches that threshold of maybe like 90% of our community already signed up, we can say, whatever your preference is how you're gonna get your messages. So if you chose instant, whatever we put out there, you're gonna get it instantly. If you say prefer time, that means you're either instant or digest. If you really choose digest from here, that means you're gonna get it 6 p.m. at night. So that is really important for people to know, because if you we send out a message and you chose digest, and let's say 20% of the community chose instant, those 20% of the people are gonna get that message instantly, and the others are gonna get it at night. So we already had an instant where we sent something out, people were already saying, I didn't get that message, because the default is digest. So that's really key. If you didn't change your notification settings, which is under your account, notification settings, if you don't change your notification settings for email, it's digest. All right, so urgent alert, you don't really turn on or off. If you click on the on and off, you can't, because those are the critical alerts that are coming to you. It doesn't matter what you choose, we're still going to push those notifications out to you. The school alerts, you are able to flip on and off. I would say don't turn it off, because those are the alerts that you would get during school closures and things like that. So you want to get those messages, make sure that your school alerts are also turned on. It is defaulted by on. Now, each one of your schools and the students are listed here, and you have a choice of email, text, or if you want to get the application, get the message on your app. You can turn off any of this if it's annoying you, or you can say digest or instant. That's totally up to you how you want to get the messages. The second thing I want to point out is the language settings. Another reason we chose Parent Square, it does an instant translation. It's pulling the information from Infinite Canvas on your home language. If your home language at the time of registration is set to Spanish or Ukrainian, any language that's out there, you're getting that message in that language that you have selected. If you want to change that, you can go into your account, go into language settings on the left side. You can choose whatever language that you want to get your messages in. So those two settings are really critical. Once you log in, you also can, on the home screen at the very top, you can switch at the top to English to Espanol. It changes the whole screen to Spanish. So that's also with that, even changing the notification language settings, you can actually click on that button and it changes the whole. You can see everything in here is changed to Spanish, and you can flip back to English if you wanted to. And we also integrated a calendar feature in there, so district calendar is integrated in there, so you will have access to that as well. So we will be training our staff to use the program. We already talked to one of our ENL students, ENL teachers today at FGL. She was using a different program called Talking Points with our teachers, and we said that's not an EVLA 2D compliant program that you're using. So we had her test out Parent Square. We created a group, put her students in there. She sent out the messages. And she's like, how do I know they got the message? And I said, well, right underneath where you have posted, you can also see how many people receive the notifications. I can't see that here because I'm logged in as a parent. But if I actually send this message out and I was logged in as a staff, I will get to see how many people saw the message, how many opened it, how many viewed it, how many appreciated it, all of that information, just like a Facebook post. So staff is starting to use it. We haven't trained the staff, so that's one of our priorities for September and October, to start training the teachers to start using the system.
Yeah. So if 40% of parents have, downloaded and registered, the other 60 that have not, how are they receiving communication right now? Still coming through anyway to their emails?
Yeah, so the registration just means they're registering to get a two-way communication going and an app downloaded. They're still getting that communication through an email. So they don't get the push notifications through the app. Like when a message goes out from Carmen, I get a push notification saying a message is posted to your app. People who are not registered don't get that, but they'll get the email in their inbox.
Then you said an email went out asking, giving parents the code. Can that email go back out just in case it went to their spam folder or people didn't receive it?
So I send out anybody who didn't register this morning. I also send out that notification again saying, inviting you to, I was hoping when people hear this, they'll see that email and they're like, oh, that's what she's talking about. So they'll sign up. So we'll keep doing that for the people who are not registered, like every couple of weeks or so. I don't want to burden them with too many emails, but yeah.
And if you install the app on the phone and it somehow it's uninstalled, I don't know why I'd be asking this.
Say that one more time.
If you install the app on the phone and it gets uninstalled,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
would you still need that same code to get in if you reinstall it?
No, because it's now connected to your, so like when I logged in, I don't know if you saw my first screen said, are you Vinnie the Joy from Carmel Central School District? Because I used the system back in the other district because it was connected to my personal email. It's going to try to merge that accounts together saying like, this is you. So I have a lot of, actually quite a few of our teachers contacted me now because they have a student, they have a child in another school district who are using Parent Square, and now they're getting the staff account. And they're like, do you want us to merge the account? It's totally up to you, but you can merge the account if you want, or you can keep them separate because your staff account is under your Henry Schools email and your child's school account should be under your personal email. So it's up to them how they want to do it because this program is pretty widely used in our area. So a lot of questions are coming up on merging accounts because they're getting, so it's done through your email and your phone number.
Great. And the Infinite Canvas parent portal is still to be used. It's for grades and schedules and
Yes.
bus routes and whatever else.
Yeah,
It's just
so
strictly for communication.
So that confusion is there. Over the weekend, I answered a lot of emails from parents asking for parent portal. And they're like, is it in Parent Square? I said, no, Parent Square is our communication system. Parent portal, which I'm going to start calling it Infinite Canvas portal, is for attendance, grades, assignments, report cards, bus assignments, all of that. So it's just one-way direction. It's just picking up information from Infinite Canvas and just posting it. We're not communicating through Infinite Campus Parent Portal.
I have another question, sorry. So we're receiving as parents, but are we ever communicating to the school through this portal? So let's say my son wakes up sick tomorrow. Is there any way, or am I still calling and emailing the nurse? Or is there a way through this portal that we can get the message to the school?
So another reason we chose the system was the attendance notification integration piece, because that's done almost manually right now. So there is a piece that you can integrate the attendance notification, which means after period 1, do you want to get notified? And by clicking on that notification you can text back saying, no, my son is at home sick. And the attendance person getting that notification. It's a process change in the building. So we're going to address that in our next admin meeting, start talking about how to move to the automated messaging system for attendance, because when I had conversations with our attendance clerks about attendance notification, the messages are going out at different times. For example, at 7 o'clock in the morning, if you send your child to the high school, sometimes that message, because we need to account for every kid, which is done manually. That message doesn't go out until like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So I was trying to make them understand, if you send your child to school at 7 o'clock, then if you don't get a call saying your child did not make it to school by, let's say, 11 o'clock, that's a 4-hour window of something that happened that you need to get a search party at 4-hour radius. That could be a completely different state altogether. That call in the morning that we send out, we got to educate the staff that 5 minutes in the classroom, you have to take attendance. When we moved to automated messaging system in my other districts, that was the communication we gave to the staff. You have to take attendance the first 5 minutes of your class. That call that goes out from your homeroom in the morning is a safety call. It's not about your son or daughter cut class. It's a safety call in the morning. In the evening, you can send out a call saying your child missed period 3, 4, 5, right? That's a cut call. But in the morning, that's a safety call. And we want to get that out as early as possible to let the parents know. And that can be automated through the system at the beginning. We're going to still keep it manual until we get the communication out to the staff about how important it is to take attendance, promptly when they come to class.
Two questions. One, if you merge accounts, your personal parent account for a teacher who has students in another district, and then they sign up with their address here for their employment, is there different functionality for the employee side than on the parent side? And are they going to lose access to that teacher functionality if they merge the two?
No, so on the screen, you'll see like FGL furnace foods, I'm a parent. If I was a staff, it's gonna give me my drop down for the building that I'm a staff at, and the functionality of like posting and messages and alerts teachers don't have, but posting and messages will come. But under the parent account, it's just that they can just see the information.
So if they merge them, they don't know the difference, and it'll give them access to all.
Correct, but it's up to them if they want to keep it separate.
Sure. Okay, the second question. On the digest, is it possible to set the emails up for digest, but then app up for instant notification? Because I think there's a lot of people that would want to know right away on the app, but maybe don't want to get 7 emails separately to manage, and the digest would work just fine.
Yeah, so if you look at the screen, the email and the text and the app, each one have a separate, either turn it off, instant or digest. It's totally up to you how you want to choose.
Thank you.
And Alexis, I just want to get back to you because you said, is there a way for parents to communicate? Each post that we do, we can either disable the comments or enable the comments. So if it's a post that you wanted to get feedback from the community, you can get that community feedback. But most of the time you don't want to do that just because it becomes a Facebook type of environment.
Thank you.
Yes, 2 questions. One is students. So in the past, our high school students and middle school students receive email that when they send out from here, through Infinite Campus, they go to the students.
as well? Or have we discussed how we're gonna work that through Parent Square?
So we wanna discuss that with the principals, because I know middle school kind of have a no phone policy, right?
Right now.
Right, so,
We're working toward it. It's only being used in certain areas.
so that's why I wanna get the feedback of the principals. Can it do that? Yes, it's called Student Square, which is already set to go. We can enable that, meaning, start using it if you wanted to. It's already integrated with, Infinite Canvas, pulling in all the information. We don't call it cell phone number for the student, it's the student email address. So they can download the app. We haven't sent out the invitation to the students yet.
They can do the app on the computer.
They can just
Like,
go
let's say
direct.
they can't use their phones in school or during class, but they can have the Student Square app on their computer so they can see the communications.
They can go to the site, like it depends on what they have. If on the iPad, obviously, they can download the app, right? If it's, they can access it through the site itself. They will get emails, just like they get emails through Google Classroom and things like that.
And that cost is integrated?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
it's not a separate code.
That's good to know. And then, can you explain, we have the digest going on, but one of the major issues we were trying to address with this was the Friday emails, which were likely going, people are getting 4 or 5, right? Friday emails. So we're shifting how that will look for parents. We're trying to make, it's gonna be a weekly?
So it's a weekly newsletter that will have the district. I'm just sharing because Josh is the one who's actually
Creating it, yes.
creating it. But the district would be at the top and the 5 schools would be underneath that. So all the information from the newsletter for each one of the schools would be included. Then the director of guidance will have a section on there too, because it's K-12. So that would go out from the building, from the district, 1 newsletter, all 5 schools. And I also wanted to tell you, as I just finished it this morning, we do have, if anybody have questions. Lighting is so bad here, I feel like I'm going black. So right here, under the Our District, I created a Parent Square page that talks about how to download the app, notification settings, language settings, and you're gonna have nice videos and resources for the parents that have to see it. So that information is there too.
Thank you.
Last question. I see on the app that you have a sign up capability. Is that going to be opened up to the PTAs for, for parent volunteers?
So PTA was another thing we had to kind of separate out, because I used to pay for the PTA eye contact messaging, which is really frowned upon by the auditor every time that they look at it. And in my other district, I actually got my hands slapped for that. So I did talk to the PTA about separating out eye contact and paying that out of the foundation and PTA. So will they have, your question was, will they be using?
So they can't use that.
They can't use the Parent Square because it would be like using district resources for PTA reasons. And it sounds bad because the PTA does so much for us, but that's how the auditors see that you're using the district accounts for PTA reasons.
And is there a way to put permission slips on here so we could sign?
Yeah. So when I start training the teachers, that would be forms. If there's a class party, they can actually say who's bringing, chips and dips or whatever, like they have a sign up form that they can do. So there's a lot more to the platform that we can get rid of. A lot of those paper permission slips for field trips that they wanted to, all of that could be done through the platform itself. So that would be part of the teacher training.
And is the poll part of the platforms for surveys?
I think there is polls. I have not tested it out, but there is a section on polls that they can do. Like I just send out all those annual notifications and Chromebook responsibilities starting next year. I'm planning on developing this because it's kind of late in the year when we launch this. For next year, we'll be having all of that go through one platform. So they don't have those emails that you get do not reply to Henhead Schools, so it will go through Parent Square. And also we have a community, at the very bottom of this, there's a community join group. We have about 2,500 community members that are already part of it that we pulled from Constant Contact. So if you're not a parent in the district, you can sign up for it here and part of Henry community, and we do send out messages through there.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Next, we're going to ask for Dr. Roller, the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, to give an update to the board and the public on our MTSS program.
Mike, are we on? Okay. Hi, everybody. First of all, welcome back to a new school year. I hope that your first few days, although hot, have been pleasant and have gone smoothly for both kids and families. It's been nice to see some of you at arrival and dismissal these past few days. So let's start with MTSS. We love acronyms in education. So MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, and that is a mouthful. Basically, I want you to think of MTSS as a giant umbrella. And under the umbrella exists a lot of academic issues on one side and a lot of social and emotional issues on the other. We think of things like PBIS, we think of, and that's our behavior plan. We think of social and emotional learning, and our schools have programs that the kids experience pretty much daily in that area. We think about looking at attendance rates and questioning, is kid coming enough? What can we do? What's happening? On the academic side, we think, of course, about achievement. So we monitor our students from the core classroom instruction, and then we look at initial struggles. What can I do as a teacher in tier 1 to do some differentiation for kids who perhaps are not performing where I'd like them to be? On the flip side of it, and something I will admit we have not often paid enough attention to, are the kids who are already achieving above grade level. So MTSS really is pushing us to consider enrichment as well as remediation on the academic side of the umbrella. So again, to go back to the tiers, and I know sometimes that's confusing to folks, tier 1 is classroom instruction. It is not only what every kid receives, but it is also what the core classroom teacher, K-12, should be doing in their classroom with small groups to differentiate for kids who may have a slightly different need than the whole group. And we have lots of data that can help us determine who those kids might be, and a lot of resources to help us figure out what should we be doing to address those needs with kids before they have to leave our classroom, because that should be the last resort. Then we have tier 2. Usually, if we have a child who for some reason is not making enough progress in tier 1, even with differentiation by the classroom teacher, we may consult through our MTSS team meeting in the building and look at what can we do, what other services in the building might be able to help this child get back on track. We think of tier 2 mostly as academic intervention services, and we also think of that in terms of reading and or math. And so those people focus at that next level. Kids who come out for AIS at tier 2 are usually seen every other day, sometimes every day, 30 to 40 minutes. Probably in a group of maybe 6 to 8 kids. And again, there is no program for AIS, whether it's math or reading. It is tailored to the needs of the students that we are responding to. And those needs can be very different. So those AIS teachers seek to group their children by the need that they're trying to remediate. If we don't see progress at tier 2, we move to tier 3, which means the same provider may be assisting those students, but in smaller groups, probably 1 to 3, and sometimes with greater frequency or longer duration. All of this is under the umbrella of MTSS. Every school in the district has an MTSS team. Those teams meet at a minimum monthly, but probably more often than that. This year, as we stretch this conversation all the way to the high school in a more robust way, there will be training for the MTSS teams, both in terms of the process, the tool that we use to house our information about student interventions and student progress monitoring, and also some of the tools that we use to help us remediate. So we actually will start that training on September 21st. With the high school and middle school teams who will be introduced to our platform for MTSS called Branching Minds. They'll learn a little bit about what the platform can do for us and how to use the platform to input information about students that we may see having struggles in one way, shape, or form, again, academic or socially, emotionally. And then we'll talk to, in the afternoon, we have a training for a similar subset of the MTSS teams on our iReady product, which is our universal screener. And that's a required tool by the state that we screen children at least K through 8, 3 times a year in reading and math. So we'll be doing a little bit of a deep dive with the iReady presenters this year to not only learn how to more fully utilize the information that we have, but also there are some interesting things that it can do for us that we haven't necessarily used in the past. And I will also share that it is new to the high school for AIS math and reading this year. So our 2 AIS folks from the high school will be sitting in for that as well. So that's a very broad, and we can do a deeper one with slides and a different presentation at another time. But I know, as I said, we love acronyms in education. So that's a little bit of an explanation about what all of those initials mean. Sometimes I think we outdo the military with that. Any other questions on MTSS?
Margaret, thank you. That's a really good breakdown. But I just have one question. How do the parents figure into the MTSS process?
Well, I hope, Stephanie, that as a classroom teacher, and I know you are as well, when a student is struggling right at the beginning, we should be reaching out to families to say, hey, you know, Lisa is a little off with something, and, you know, can you tell me? Sometimes there's a struggle at home. You know, there might be a family member that isn't feeling well, or maybe they're in the process of making a move still within the district and it's upsetting to the child. So we always want to know why there's a struggle so that we can properly address what the struggle is. So I would hope that the communication starts right then and there, and then of course continues with the parent if we continue to see struggles as we continue as educators to move them through that MTSS system.
So I get that because I think every teacher does that and talks to the parents. I'm just really thinking formally, the AIS process. Are the parents brought in? Because I see tier 1 is differentiated instruction and teachers doing it. Tier 2, there's not enough progress. They're referred. Are the parents formally part of any of this referral process?
I don't think that any of our schools invite parents to the MTSS meeting where those decisions are being made, but we are required to inform you that based on our local benchmarking, your student is going to be referred for additional math support. Now, again, I would hope that the parent has known this. That should never come as a surprise to a parent to get that letter in the mail. You should have known all along that we were moving with continued concern about your particular student. But I can't say that they invite parents to those meetings to look at that information. It should have been shared in the process.
By the teacher?
Yes, and or the principal, because I would imagine the principal may want to reach out as well.
I have a question as well. For the testing that we do, for like the iReady or anything, do any of those scores go onto Infinite Campus so that parents can see them after they're tested the 3 times per year?
Yes, they are available. I think it's the assessment tab, Benita, am I right? If they go in there, you'll be able to see their iReady scores, their state scores for the 3 through 8 testing. You'll also see their FNP, which is the running record inventory. So you can see all those things. It'll show you the year and or for argument's sake with the benchmark, it'll say fall, winter, spring, and the year.
What grade does that start for?
Well, it starts with kindergarten for the universal screener, which is iReady. And then once they read, there's an FNP. So that may be for some students in kindergarten, but for others more likely starting in 1st grade. And then of course the state testing starts at grade 3.
When it's in Infinite Campus, and I did see that, I didn't see where it explained the scores.
No, it doesn't explain the scores.
So because if you're not in education, and I'm not elementary, so me hearing a U or an iReady score, I wouldn't be able to tell you how my kids do because I'm high school. Maybe there's a way that we can somehow, maybe with Parent Square or through Infinite Campus, explain the scores so people know what they're looking at.
You're like a key.
A key.
Right.
I also think that
the key. So we just actually came to realize that there is remember that report you and I looked at? Something that was 14 pages. There's a parent report.
yes, but that's not in.
No, but there is a parent report in a separate area of iReady. And I understand that it is available in multiple languages. It looks a lot like the state reports that you get for the 3 through 8 testing, you know, that 2-sided thing. So we will be accessing that. I had this conversation actually with Dennis a couple of days ago. Almost every place I've been, things like iReady, and we've used Star and other places, and things like the F&P, remember years ago it was DRA, et cetera. Tools that are used for instructional purposes are not usually sent home to parents, but they should be addressed at parent conferences as a method of explaining how your son or daughter is doing. We can, imagine sending home the F&P letter. There would have to be pages explaining that. And I can't think who asked us to do this. You may have asked us.
I actually asked, I didn't know what a U was, and I didn't even know if that meant you
So,
good or bad.
Again, I would hope that at a parent conference, your teacher would explain to you where your student is and what that meant relative to the grade level.
For the conference.
So I just want to throw in,
Go ahead.
at the elementary level, this is what happens, right? I've gone through it now with two of my kids. You do the beginning of the year, and then at conferences, which are in November, you talk about it. And then they do it in the winter, and then at conferences, you talk about it. So you do it in elementary. I think where it gets hard is as the kids get into, right, because there's not really that conversation. And by the time my child got there, it was a different circumstance, but I don't know what that looks like. But elementary, they definitely at conferences hit on it and explain to you the alphabet.
And I do remember that at elementary. I think where the disconnect is when you transfer to middle school. And I did see the iReady report, not on Infinite Campus. There's a wealth of information for a parent in that iReady report in tactics you can use to help your child, especially if you're paying for a tutor, what the tutor could use. So that iReady report, even and the fact that it's available in different languages, there has to be a way to put it on Infinite Campus. That's all I'm saying. The parents out there that need it.
We can load it, the parent records onto the site, we just don't do it at this time. Just like the New York State reports, we get the PDFs and we just load them into the, what do you call that area, backpack. So we can do the same thing. We can, if that's something that we want to move towards.
We can put them in a backpack, but a faster solution, quite frankly, since both of you mentioned the same thing, is I can easily talk to Anthony and Anicia and ask that the math and ELA teachers do an iReady piece in your conference. They don't do running records in, the AIS teacher would, but the classroom teacher at middle school doesn't do a running record any longer, but they all use iReady. So you should, when you go to your November conference, even if you're at middle school, have that opportunity to talk to your math or ELA teacher about the results. Absolutely.
It is hard in those books when we have 15 minutes with your team, and if you have a language added to that, that's 5. So, and we're discussing it's different grades. Like you're discussing where you are in each thing. But I guess again, if a parent had a concern, if a teacher had a concern, that would be where it would be.
Right. I would hope, yes. And we are, just to tag on to this, because it did come up in our last curriculum subcommittee, we are doing a literacy night for parents. I think Dana and I settled on November 6th. So I mentioned it to the AIS team at K5 yesterday, and a few people have volunteered to do that evening with me to talk about the tools that we use. It will include iReady, it will include the running record inventory. We'll take a look at what we call the early childhood piece, which is letter ID, sound symbol, basic elementary phonics and phonemic awareness stuff. So we will go through that, and we're in the process of trying to figure out if we can do it. We didn't realize that's the night before election, and we were thinking FGL, but we may stay with the virtual platform and not worry about it, and not make a mess over there that we don't want to make. But that's the night that we settled on. So that will happen, and we'll keep you informed about what that looks like, the planning.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is our superintendent's report. Laura?
The first is we've had a normal start to the school year. I'm thankful that everything is going well except for the weather. So we will continue. I know there are parents concerned about the heat, but we're continually monitoring that a number of times during the year, and we have reports coming from each of the buildings. And with Building and Grounds and Anthony Merlini and I, and even Tom Baker, who is involved with athletics, which is why we did what we did today, to say nothing, because the earliest they probably would be able to get on the field would be 7 or 8 o'clock at night tonight. And since I know football already got up and they're at 5 o'clock in the morning, I didn't want to have anybody squeeze another one in, although there's a game on Saturday, but that was the reasoning. I'm confident that once the weather breaks, we'll be fine, and that looks like it's going to happen on Friday. So it's a matter of getting through tomorrow. Along with a number of other items that I think I should mention. The most important one is our upcoming work sessions, which really begins in 2 weeks in our next meeting. And I just want to clarify one more time the purpose of what we're trying to do with work sessions, which again will be posted on the website and through board docs and everything about what is going on and the like. But it ties to our committees. So along with what's going on this evening, which is to adopt a policy on site-based teams and shared decision-making, we want to get parent volunteers. Of course, teachers we always get, administrators we always get, that's the easy one. But getting parent volunteers in appropriate areas, and in that work session that's tied to it is a set of committees that I listed and sent a memo out, I believe it was earlier today. So that probably has hit because I've already received some email responses. So I know our communication system is working. But anyway, let me mention that one that I'm speaking to is specifically on that note is number 3. And that's where I know there's a lot of interest, and I only bring it to everyone's attention for the following reason. Yes, we are looking at our framework going to the future and what will it look like. And I keep reminding everyone you've got to think of it more holistically than what might have happened last spring, where when I arrived, we were focused totally on banding and not banding and how we are structured. And the reason I say that is there's so many complications to this answer to this story. And you can't do that without having a specific plan in place of what does it mean to, let's start with our first discussion about what is early childhood education and what should it look like and how do we go about it. And the closest thing we come to it is in our pre-K 1 building. And Dr. Kramer happens to have a degree in it as well. So that one kind of hums, but it goes beyond that. It does go to grades 2, and in some instances, as we'll hear in the future, to grade 3. And then what kind of articulation do we have across K-12? So a lot of this is broken down and it's not working properly. And that's really what my concern is. So I don't want to get focused on whether should we or should we not have banding Princeton plan or not. That's not the conversation. The conversation is what is the program that we want to have? And the board ultimately at that December meeting, with all that input that we will get from our September, October, and November consultants coming in, work sessions being held, parent meetings that are held on those same days with the same consultants. So when you volunteer, be committing to daytime meetings 2 hours with the consultant. And then again, hopefully you'll either show up that night at the board meeting or you can listen to it, or because it's a work session, the board will be hearing the same thing. And so watching it wouldn't hurt either. And then you can provide feedback at that other board meeting and or like you do right now. A lot of people communicate through email and the like. So we certainly know how to hear from you. Then there was a concern about what do we do with grades, 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. And the reason it was separated is because whatever those decisions are, and there is talk about should we move 5th grade to the middle school, should we move 8th grade to the high school? Well, those things were going to be done at the site-based teams. And so it's not like you're being excluded. We specifically went by grade levels and we specifically set up committees along those grade level setups. So specifically, again, that committee that deals with the work sessions is number 3 on my list that I sent out. And that would involve K-5 parents. The rest of you that are interested in the upper grades, you want to volunteer for what we're adopting, hopefully we'll adopt tonight, will be our shared decision-making teams, site-based teams. And that's where those discussions will take place. In the end, with all that input and all that discussion and all of those things, what else the board is going to be doing along the way, will provide the necessary facts that the board will have to make a decision in December. Let me give you by example of something, they're gonna continue to pop up as we go through it, so I don't want you to think I haven't thought about it. I do think about it, I lose sleep on this one. But my concern is I wanna make sure the board is fully equipped to make the appropriate decisions. And so it dawned on me, and it was a conversation with Margaret when we were chatting the other day about the PD piece, because we're looking at professional development. And how do we orchestrate? For example, we know we're looking at a new ELA program. You know, what will happen when we adopt? How do we train those people? We also know, as Vinita said, one of the reasons for making her an executive director and the innovation piece is all about technology and the integration of technology. And how do we get that K through 12? And how do we get that K through 12 articulation? All of those being concerns, another thing that popped up was, guess what? It has something to do with busing. What we said was, if we had all of our elementary schools, let's say, and I know we're just talking about it, so don't panic yet. If we had everybody on the same bus schedule, I mean, I know that's difficult for parents, and I don't know what the makeup is going to be of what those 3 buildings will look at. But I asked Liz, what would that mean? It means we would have to hire 7 more people, and we'd have to bring on 7 new buses to run those 3 independently. I don't want to make that decision. That's a board and community discussion. But I want to give you the options. It's up to you to weigh that that's important to you and you still want to do it. Or no, what's the alternative? The alternative to get us to do K-12 articulation is to get everybody in the same place at the same time. And I don't mean by grade level bands. I'm talking about a K-5 conversation, a 6 through 8 conversation, a 9 through 12 conversation, or for that matter, a 6 through 12 conversation. So how do we create that? That becomes a negotiable item because we need to come up with more, what do you call it, step development days. And we don't have enough in our contract and in our days because we barely make it when we put in things like snow days and we put in and then we wind up taking away if we use snow days. So you can't, as Margaret would say to you, you can't run a PD program knowing that in the spring, because of bad weather, we've just lost them. So we got halfway through what we were trying to give the teachers, and now we have to wait till the fall again. So we lose momentum. So this is very complex. I'm trying to make a point that your way as parents to get involved and allow the board the input from a variety of sources is through what went out as the committees, and I will read them to you. Number 1 is the district level planning committee. That's the one you'll hear about tonight in the policy on why we said that wrong, shared decision making. And with that is a committee that will meet with the superintendent of schools, myself, along with administrators, along with teachers, and some parents to decide what will that structure look like at the building level. In other words, how many teachers, how many parents, how will they get elected or how will they get selected? Whatever we want to do, it's that planning committee that makes that up, not the board policy. So the second one there will be 5 building level teams. This year, they will be centered around the structure of the schools. We have a pre-K, a 1, a 2, 3, and a 4, 5. And of course, we have our, for the 5 grade levels. So that's how we will cover that. And that input will be important to the board. One that I felt was critical in listening to parents, listening to our administrators, listening to some of the things that Lisa was experiencing in special ed and what Margaret was experiencing in regular ed was the issues around social emotional needs. And I wanted to form a task force with a beginning and an end because things go on forever. Parents need to know there's an end to some of this stuff. It's not rocket science if you put the right things in place. I go back to what we did with MTSS. We put MTSS in place because we knew where we had problems. And what was described to you tonight was a lot of putting together things that were not connected and not done properly and no articulation. And so the background of that was, when you looked at it, was what a mess. And what we tried to do, we really didn't do very much. We did, I would say, the board cooperated. We did hire people in different positions where we needed them, but we tied it all together. And under the leadership of Margaret, working with the building principals, that this is going to work for us. So I'm happy about that. So the social emotional needs committee, we're going to have grade level representation. So we're going to need 12 people. Actually, we probably will start with pre-K. So if there's somebody interested from pre-K all the way up, nobody's exempt from this. The problems are real. A lot of that you're going to be hearing when you listen to our second speaker in that series in October, and Dr. Oliveria, who comes from Yale. the child center there is going to speak about the social emotional needs, the issues of COVID, and what are we facing in our schools, specifically around early childhood, because that's what her specialty is. So it feeds us two bits of information, one in the area of special social emotional needs, but also in us addressing the December decision for the Board of Education. Now, the next two are contractual ones with the teachers, and where we definitely want parent and we want a board member to be on it. One is the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Council with one parent representative from each of the elementary, middle school, and high school level. And the other one is Professional Development Committee. That, again, will be a parent from each of the three levels. They kind of stand for themselves, you know, what, from the words, what they mean. Again, they don't meet as often. I think we have them meeting every other month, so you're not totally inundated with too many things to commit to. So somebody who doesn't want a big commitment of meeting monthly could look at this one, which meets every other month. And last but not least, under our own policy, is the audit committee, and the audit committee is specified in the document. It needs to have a community member that the board will select from whatever the volunteers are. Hopefully you have a background in business and auditing, because it's the nuts and bolts of the dollars and cents of running the school district. I've spoken enough, and I think I covered what I wanted to cover.
I think the only, just think as you're talking, some of these committees, is it appropriate to look for students?
Yeah, and we didn't mention that because then weren't part of my audience, but we are definitely going to reach out, particularly at the secondary level when you're adding courses and whatnot, and bringing them into those meetings that are appropriate. I would even add them, and as a planning committee, I would bring it up that it's appropriate at the middle and high school to have them on the site-based teams. It's probably not appropriate at the elementary level. At least I've not found that the case, but again, we may decide to do that. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah.
I just had a question. How are the parents going to be selected for these committees, and can they be on several committees at the same time?
So I'm going to try to do my best to be not partisan in any way, but to reach out. So if we have a lot of people volunteering, then I'm not going to have people being on multiple, because I want to try to give people an opportunity to be on it. So there'll be a limit. Obviously, each of these has a certain limitation. So we have to look at if there's 25 or 30 that we need, then that's what we'll do, and we'll try. In case we get less, then of course we double up. And again, I want everyone to understand I'm going to not do this in isolation. There'll certainly be conversations with board members and our own staff to see that we get people that they're active, they're participatory. I don't mind what background anybody has in terms of their political viewpoints on any of this. What I care about is people that are open-minded and listen and speak and engage properly, so we don't get into the frenzy we got last spring. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
And then one other question was just about collecting data as far as like growth of school, population changes that come to that. Are we going to get any information?
Yes, so again, what I said about feeding information to the board, I already have the draft here because Anita got that to be run off with Galene Price. So we have the updated one from last spring, and then we have the new data because everybody's enrolled and we know what numbers are and where that falls out. And then when you look at the new plan, ABC and so on, you have new data, new breakdown of socioeconomic and all the ethnicity pieces. So that'll help the board make further decisions and give us some direction, like, do we move a line and change a boundary in order to try to equate better? Again, remember, the only way we can do that is by distance traveled, not by trying to capture a certain neighborhood or anything like that. So it always has to be about distance, and the ones that we had worked out evenly the last time, whether the data meets the way you feel about it, is still up to the board at the end.
Well, one of my questions exactly is just there's that 147 units that's going to be coming to Buchanan. And I just want to make sure that's also factored into any data that we're receiving or we're reviewing before we make that decision.
So having had this happen to me in my previous district, the only thing a board can do going forward, because from the time that discussion takes place and the time people actually move into the apartments is probably a 2 or 3 year window, depending on how bad the weather is in the winter, construction, supplies, materials. I have a neighbor, my neighboring lot to my condo complex. I've been watching that since February, and they keep saying that they're taking people and some people are renting in the units. That is very far. They don't even have a roof on it yet. So winter's coming, and obey anything, they'll get delayed, and if we're lucky, in that case, they may be taking people in probably for that, not even this school year, but the following school year. No, it's not approved yet. So all I can say is keep your eye on it, and we can estimate, because I'm sure the data's there with this, with the town. It might say to you that each unit is expected to produce 1.2 children. So we can get that data, multiply, and say this is what we can expect, but again, it's across probably 12
By the
grades.
time it's built, you could have lost children.
Yes,
And it's also, they're 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. I think there's less 2 bedroom than 1 bedroom. There's no 3 bedroom units in there, and I think the 2 bedrooms are limited. So it's just, I mean,
We have
this
to
is,
look at that.
we're obviously gonna talk about it, but I don't think that's like the end all be all for our decision to be made. Because development can happen anytime.
Yeah, I just think if we're doing future thinking of how our schools are to be restructured, we should be catering to all those influx of kids that we could get. I mean, peak skill size, so we should have that information in there so we can process it.
You know, I'm to piggyback on that. It is in the planning phase, and I think everyone in the community, I know that there's a meeting. I don't know. There's 2 meetings. I think we should post that. But I'm not just worried about the kids. I'm worried about the traffic and the high school getting out on time and that impacting every other building. And that really, really concerns me because we already know when the Veterans Hospital gets out, nobody's making it to the high school or central office. So if that high school gets held up, all of your elementary schools and your middle schools are gonna have problems. So everyone in the community should show up. Can we post that?
It's on the village.
The Village of
Pointed.
Buchanan?
Village of Buchanan, and they usually post it to other.
Village of Buchanan website tells you when the meetings are. Facebook page tells you when the meetings are.
It's the 20th, the first one, when is it?
The 28th is the third. Not that property, it's the other property.
The 28th is the one across from
The high school.
the high school.
Any other questions for Dr. Laura? All right, we are moving on to our policy readings. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 this evening, 2 of which are second readings and 2 of which are first readings. So the first policy that we're going to discuss is the shared decision-making policy, which Dr. Laura was just referencing. Erica, do you want to read it?
Policy 2265, shared decision making. In accordance with the regulations of the Commissioner CR 100.11, the board has adopted a plan for the effective. Second. All in favor? Okay. So we just have to vote to approve this or any amendments or adjustments.
I was gonna say that we should, it was brought to our attention that we should adjust the first sentence in accordance with the regulations of the Commissioner, CR 100.11, the board, it says has adopted a plan. We're still in the making. Eventually, when this policy is in place, there will be a plan, but the board will adopt and maintain a plan is something that I kind of like how that reads better because the plan may change, right? So adopt and maintain a plan for effective participation. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on this policy, but that was mine.
just to add that when state ed operates properly, I say that because lately it hasn't been, but when we get back to normal, the commission will ask for a biennial review every 2 years. So we would have changes probably.
All right, so we can, are we all in agreement with that small change?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the policy with the adjustment.
Second. All in favor? Right. All right, our next policy. Yeah. The next policy to be read tonight, it's a second reading of the opioid overdose prevention policy. This one's got a little bit of a history. We created the policy in February, we did a second reading, we approved it, and then at the last meeting, we had to do a small edit.
In the last paragraph.
Right, about how it would be reviewed. Okay. All right, great. So Erica, would you read the policy?
This is policy 8121.1. The Board of Education recognizes the use of.
Second. All in favor? All right, does the board have any questions about this policy or concerns or changes? Everyone good with this one?
I'd like to make a motion to approve this policy as it reads.
All in favor? Okay, now these are our first readings, and they're not too long, so we'll try to read and explain them, okay?
This one is a revision.
This is a revision?
Homebound instruction is
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
revision.
Oh, I guess they're all technically revisions.
This one, yeah, the major, yeah.
It's not a brand new policy. So this one we're discussing is the homebound instruction. Erica, do you want that policy?
Policy 4421, homebound instruction. Homebound instruction is a service provided to students of residents who are unable to attend school due to health or disciplinary issues. Secondary students receive instruction for 15 hours per week, and elementary students receive 10 hours per week. Appropriateness of instruction required is based on a case-by-case basis.
Motion to waive.
Second.
So this is a revision based on New York State regs. Lisa can talk a little bit about this one.
So last spring, it was brought to our attention that New York State is reviewing the homebound instruction hours, because previously students in K to 5 or K to 6 were only getting an hour a day. So if they had medical needs and they were home, they only got 1 hour of instruction based on a 7-hour day. So in July 1st, they changed it so the elementary students will get 2 hours daily and the high school will get 3 hours daily. So that's the revision that we need to put into place.
So is it a weekly requirement or a daily requirement?
It can be, well, it depends on the student. So let's say if we're home medically and I can really do 2 hours today, but tomorrow I'm really good and I can do 4 hours, as long as it hits that number. So we let the tutors work with the students, especially if it's a medical need.
Do you think we need to note that like an and or?
No, because it gives you the number of hours per week. Yeah.
So you have to provide 15 hours per week broken up as
Whatever the student
whatever.
can handle.
Okay,
Yeah.
so-
We'll be bringing this policy back to the next meeting so that we can read it again. Okay, the last policy for review tonight is the student automobile use, driving and parking. Well, now it's the student driving and parking.
Yes,
Better.
this is policy 5454, student driving and parking. No student shall drive or be a passenger in a motor vehicle during school hours. Read it all? Yeah. No student shall drive or be a passenger in a motor vehicle during school hours unless specific permission is granted by the principal or his or her designee for an acceptable reason, for example, medical appointment. Written permission with the parent guardian signature must be submitted to the building principal to grant the request. Only students who have been issued permits will be allowed to park in school assigned parking areas. All other students and cars will be towed at the owner's expense. Driving to school and parking on school grounds is a privilege, not a right. If a student does not behave responsibly while driving on and or parking on school grounds, the privilege may be suspended or revoked. In addition, disciplinary action may be taken in accordance with the district code of conduct. A student driver must have a valid, active, clean driving license, and the vehicle being used must be adequately registered and insured. It is the policy of the district that a student who drives to school must use district-provided transportation to and from any school program, athletic competition, or organized activity except athletic practices. Notwithstanding this provision, a parent or guardian may submit a notarized letter to the building principal requesting that permission be granted for his or her child to drive to and from the BOCES program. The letter must specify a valid reason for the student to drive to and from BOCES and provide explicit permission for the student to do so. The building principal will review the circumstances surrounding the request and determine if permission will be granted. If permission is granted, the parent or guardian and student must also sign a statement acknowledging that the student will not allow passengers in his or her car when driving to and from BOCES. If the student does not comply with this requirement, the privilege of driving to and from BOCES may be suspended or revoked.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is a clean driving license? My concern is if the kid rolls to a stop sign, is that no longer a clean license? And like, it seems a little bit of an overreach. It should just be a valid license. Right? I don't know that it should.
Well, this was suggested by Keenan B, correct? They adjusted this particular line. I think.
How we know.
Probably should ask that question.
Okay.
Actually, you know what I'm saying, because it's, to me, that one piece, New York State says they should drive.
And they're new drivers. Probably gonna go through stop sign. I guess that's what that means, right? And how do we validate?
Erica, in keeping consistent with one of the other policies that you put forward last year, should we change in the second to last sentence? Instead of in his or her car, in the car, or the student's car?
It should be the student. Yeah. I think we should change that. Yeah, in the third, fourth line.
There's two places. There's one on the third, fourth line down on the right. And the second one up on the bottom.
Here,
Yes,
so that permission be granted for
their child.
yes,
Or their student.
their child to drive to universities and then their parents. The student will not allow passengers in their car.
Okay, and up here also.
In the board.
Student, their students. Second line. For the students.
Those students got their own. Also, by the principal or
The students. No, what is it? I'll just start with. We can figure that out. Yeah, I think it's for their designate, but I have to clarify. Yes, their parent designate. Yeah, their guardian.
Yeah.
Not designate. Yeah, okay. Okay, we'll look at that and bring it back. Okay.
any other questions about this policy or comments, concerns? Good. All right. We are not done yet. Before we get on to board comments, new business, and our goals and district goals, that discussion, are there any committee reports that anyone wants to share this evening? No, we haven't really. All right. We have a new item placed on the agenda under new business this evening. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Hendrick Hudson Central School District hereby denies the transportation appeal brought by the parents of student ID number 975-614-8622. I'll make a motion to approve this appeal. Yeah, to approve the resolution.
The resolution of the appeal, to approve the resolution of the appeal.
There's a second. All in favor? All right, so every year around this time, the board has to work on goals, and it's goals for the board as well as goals for the district. We do a lot of team building and, board development over the summer, and we all have to kind of think and talk about what our ideas are for our board goals and our district goals, but we have to do it publicly. So I have notes from our retreat, but at this time, I'm going to run through them with the board, what I kind of gathered, and then we need to elaborate on them and discuss them so that we can actually form them into actual smart, measurable, goals. I'll start with the district goals. I think it makes sense to begin with that. I just need to be able to take notes. Yeah. Go ahead. Okay, so this is what I gathered from our retreat, and I hope that it kind of lays the foundation for the discussion. So I'll go through what I have, and then everyone can we'll go back to one and talk about how we can write that out. So number one is the restructuring of UPK through 12 and examine the results and continuously improve. The second is professional development. The third goal is around facilities, bonds, and capital improvements. The fourth is reassessing our 10-year projections based on what we have and know now. The fifth is celebrations of community, students, and staff accomplishments. And number 6 is improved communication with all stakeholders. So these are the notes from the summer. I don't know if you guys have ideas on how we can formally write these out. So the first one was the restructuring of UPK through 12, examine the results and continuously improve. Or actually, before we do that, is there something that I'm missing on this list that somebody feels is priority, or something that is not a priority that is on this list?
think the only thing I would like to say is that it makes sense here to somehow include the strategic plan. That are one of our goals, is that?
Right, it is on our board goals, but it does need to be district for other people outside of the board to make that a priority.
Yes, so we have to make sure that that's captured here, in some capacity. The only thing is that I think much of this has come out of the strategic plan.
Right.
I mean, right, 'cause I think like 1, 5, and 6, almost, I made a note only 3, but I think it captures all,
Yeah.
4 pillars.
Could we then word somehow that those 3 things into one goal using the strategic plan as like the main part and then making those pieces that we are hoping to accomplish within?
Yeah.
Or were there any goals of the strategic plan for this coming year that we could add as SMART goals for? Like restructuring UPK through 12, do we take any actions specific that we wanted to do that we can add as a SMART goal so that we ensure that we do it? That came out of strategic plan. Like communications, we could put parent squared, right? Right. That's what I guess was there,
Well, you do have your December 6th
right,
decision, which would tie that together.
okay.
So there's a measurable that you do make a decision by December
Okay.
6th,
And
one way or the other.
want to say restructuring then, or just like examining the structure of our schools from pre-K to 12?
I think we should say examine and restructure. So if we just say examine, I don't want to be like,
We're not gonna push this again,
yeah,
right? We
I
gotta make red.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not saying in that we're not gonna make a decision. I'm just saying the word restructure implies automatically that we're changing the schools the way they are. So that's why I would just maybe stay away from the word restructure, but we can examine and make a decision on the structure of our schools. K to
But
12.
how about even that? The only thing is like, this is not just that elementary, it was already begun to restructure how our high school looks and our programs. So I do believe that no matter what, we've already started the restructuring. You know what I mean?
I know, I get it, and that's what I'm saying, like, that we will continue to structure.
Continuously.
Continuously structure.
Yep.
Seamlessly the K,
Exactly.
pre-K through 12. Program.
Implies that we are looking at, right, which I think we need to have all of the information to process and actually make a decision, so it should be worded a little differently.
K through 12 overall. It's not just about the elementary. So like Dr. Laurel has been working hard with the secondary principals and Lisa and Margaret on the restructuring of the master schedule at the high school. So this is much bigger than just elementary. It's really how do we always do what's best for students, UPK through 12. So I think examine continuously
Examine
improve and
improve the
restructure, right? Because restructuring isn't just about physical.
I get it, I would say the word kind of connotates
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
With that piece looming, not all the time, but with this December 6th piece looming, it kind of gives that connotation.
Okay.
So I would just say to continuously monitor and improve the structure of, doesn't mean that we're not doing it. It just means that we're going to continue to do it all the way.
Examine,
to 12.
continuously monitor, and improve the structure of our UPK through 12.
Yeah.
Okay, Erica's on that. Okay. Carmen's got it too?
I see your daughter.
So that's our goals. Now we have to come up with a SMART goal to get us there, right? So it's got to be measured. Now, I mean, we can write decision of December 6th. Like, I mean, that is gonna be we're gonna make a decision. Right? So I think it is a SMART
By
goal.
December 6th.
The December 6th decision,
But we're saying this is continuous, right? So
but this is for
But
this
that's,
year.
yeah, the one elementary piece will be December 6th, and then how are we measuring what we're doing then
For
from
MTSS.
6 through 12? I think that's the piece that's just not measurable right now, so maybe,
well,
like, after we do this decision in December, what's our next step? K through 12, and that we can add on to our goal.
Well, maybe we get data from our use of MTSS. Is there?
But there's
what
so
data
many
can we
things,
get?
right? Like how do you bring it, how do you tie it all in?
So the third session with Bradley Ice, that one that I mentioned.
No, I don't mean that elementary though.
No, I meant, no, that's the one, that's continuous improvement, it's what it's called, and it's a K-12 piece. So there's more to come on that one,
Okay.
so that takes us into the future, that's the one that rolls over.
Okay.
So I would use the word continuous improvement, it's consistent with the Vicky Bernhardt.
I think what we should do is probably work through the goals and then make sure that we have ways to measure these things.
I was gonna say, well, our measuring could be collecting data, analyzing the data, like collecting the iReady scores or our AIS, like improvement or what's happening in those classrooms, so we can include the data collection and analyzing, and then the presentations in our end of the year board meetings.
Yep. Yeah, through improved data collection and review. You're also.
Think about this, that you wanted staff to work toward, you were kind of,
The 95%. goal,
yeah, I mean, how can we tie this into that? I think that would be,
Yeah, that actually.
But
that would
student
be
achievement, it's your student achievement one, number one.
okay, is there a percentage?
Well, that is what we're working on, student achievement.
So is there a percentage? What's your goal for the staff this year? I think, can we,
Shoot for the 95.
okay,
You know, again, it's continuous improvement. We're gonna fall short, most likely, I hope not, but we will. And then.
I guess we can
what do
measure the improvement
Yes, we
of,
can.
maybe I could get that.
Keep tweaking it, pushing it forward.
Okay, so this first goal is really centered on student achievement. And that's through our programs and our structures.
Mhm.
Okay.
One benchmark would be it's measurable, the 95%.
Yeah, I just know that,
Stated.
you know, that's one of your,
Mhm.
one of your messages. That's what we're gonna have to work on.
I have a grading system and I get it to 70%.
Sorry, right, like I don't think we can say 95, we have to probably put a percentage of improvement or something.
Maybe that should be.
I don't think.
So the second one that I mentioned was around professional development. I think it's because the board wants to make it a priority for our staff to feel valued, to continue their education, to share with each other and educate each other, right? That was kind of the thought behind the professional development being a district goal.
I would tie that to that committee,
Yes.
and the success and failure could be magical.
Yeah.
It's gonna be only success, not failure, but.
So we
the
want to
committee would
enhance.
be the way to get there.
So we're looking to enhance
Right,
professional development for,
The more active involvement of all stakeholders through that committee.
And making sure that we're getting, like feedback from the teachers, what professional development they want, and are we offering it?
I also wanted to.
Can they offer it to each
When
other?
we talk about professional development, and it's always the teachers,
It's
we
the
need
staff.
to be doing stuff, right, exactly, like our secretaries, they're constantly taking courses, how can we help them, you know, get better options? How can our custodians receive them, you know, it's.
My compliments to the Tama group, because they did reach out this week with exactly that, that they've had people who are trained on their staff that could help train the new people, and they asked how they could go about doing that, and could they have time during the PD days? And it works because they're teaching assistants, so they're here when they're free when the teachers are free.
Yeah.
So the answer was yes, so that's another one that you can tie together.
So we're enhancing professional development for all staff. The development, new, cities.
Yeah, well, we got participation in that one committee.
Yeah.
In addition to reaching out to I would then specify TAMA, CSEA.
Right, the various
secretary,
groups.
various groups
To make sure that they're
included.
included and getting, you know. Thank you for typing this.
Margaret, can you, I know they have professional development. The teachers have access to this all the time through Frontline, correct? There's no limitation on what they can do within that, right?
There's no limitation
Contract.
that they can take.
Yeah, like if they feel like doing something, they can do it. It's all, it's at their fingertips at all times, or how does that work?
They have in their contract, I believe, 20 in-service credits over their career in the district. So they sometimes look at that, and if they max that, they'll ask to do something possible. Or they will ask.
I think it's important for us to know, have an idea of how much it costs, because I think I think we have to discuss whether or not we would ever refuse professional development, right? Because
We refuse if it does, so the other part of the language, I'm looking at this and I'm not using it, not very clever. The other piece of their CBA language is that it has to match their current position.
okay,
So if I'm, a math teacher and there's an offering in dance, then the district does not need to support that. I certainly encourage people to attend, but I don't have to give them credit for that because that's not their area of instruction. That's not what they're hired for. So, but it's very hard to really say how much in a given year. Remember, that's only one part of professional development is what's in frontline. Then there is what we bring into the district through consultants. And some of that is district driven and some of it is department driven.
I think with a goal like this, like, is there a way for us to measure how they're utilizing the tools that are not us telling them they have to do professional development?
Sure, we could get printouts from frontline professional growth to see how many people took courses for credit or for,
I mean, we tell them that we're looking to support them in that, what they need, right? That's kind of what we're getting at, right? We have to be able to monitor it.
Another thing that I think we've heard, at least Eric and I think we heard it, the staff wants to educate each other.
Yes, that was my next point.
So whether it be security to security or teacher to teacher, computer science teaching, how do we bring that into English and vice versa, whatever, all of these great things. I think that's something that we have to foster.
And we did that. We actually
Yes.
just did it, which was a request that was made, and it looked like it went really well.
Yeah, we got good feedback.
So it's good.
we've had the ability to, have in service after school. So there's a form in frontline professional growth. They go in and they propose a course that they would like to teach. And then, that, like, as I've said many times this year, I'd love to see us have a more robust catalog internally. And we certainly do have people who have gifts to offer, but it's a question of having people fill out the paperwork, have time after school. Some of them are taking classes themselves. Some of them have young children. So I don't see any reason why we couldn't, encourage that. We certainly, I'll say it this way, we have not discouraged anyone from doing it, but I have not seen anybody really come forth to make a proposal. Hopefully this year that will change. We see a conversation burgeoning in HHEA about that. So I hope we'll have more in the catalog than we've had.
And what's the process if you're not in HHEA? They don't use this frontline program, right? That's for
The teaching assistants have access. They've registered for things in the past. As a matter of fact, I not long ago sent them something that was being offered, I believe at BOCES, that I thought was worthwhile for them. It was I think Jim Rogolski, who may be watching, will agree with me that it was a miss that we did not consider having them attend the workshops that were offered on the second day. And certainly if we do that again, then, using an early release day, we will not make that mistake and overlook that group.
We have also bought licenses in the past for teaching assistants to get some online PD, and they can do that independently. And they were getting, I don't know if they were getting credits for it, but they could do it after school. I had a couple people say, oh, I learned so much, but that then went away probably 3 years ago. So they've had opportunities, but I think that's something that we can definitely do better at.
The administrators have access, we get access to this.
Oh.
Too, right? What this?
Erica, I also wanted to chime in, within the professional learning growth system that we have, you got catalogs from the different BOCES, like we signed up for model schools, for example, if you remember last year. that has all the technology related courses like iReady, Edpuzzle, Flipgrid, things like that. That's all free under the model schools.
Model school, okay.
So courses are already in those course catalogs that it's free signups for teachers. Usually I send out like a monthly when they put out courses. I send that email out to the teacher saying you can select any of these courses to attend.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a good one. Facilities, bonds and capital improvements. I just also think we should talk about just in general budget, like what do we want our facilities budget to be? I think it's all just, not just cap, right? What do we want to do yearly? Well, repetitive.
I'm trying to think how to word that. So, annual facilities budget improvement or something to that effect.
Well, it's gonna be a review. Yeah.
Well, it's gotta talk about two pieces, right? It's gotta be like preventative maintenance piece to just run the buildings so that they function. And then
A cycle.
in addition, yeah, exactly, like what's the cycle stuff that we wanna do in addition to what it just takes to keep the lights on.
Identify like any problem with buildings that we have or any improvements we want to make, and then kind of work towards that as our goal in the end. So that way we have a comparison of what we got
I
done.
think we asked for principals and for Anthony to come up with a list of, you know, the top 10 facilities items in each of the buildings.
Can we also add that something to the effect of the facilities committee to drive this?
I think the facilities committee is probably looking after all this.
That's what I mean. We tie it in, but
Yeah, and we're gonna do
and report at board meetings, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, the ultimate goal here is to get a bond. I would say we can make that a specific goal, facilities committee, or I guess you could say facilities, but that would be the district, really, that would be us, the district. Right, does it matter? Well, the facilities committee has to create it, and then got it. And then it's gonna have to get approved. Yeah. Second of it. But that's when the community get approved. The community will have to vote on it. Yeah. And that's gonna happen through a few multiple.
Budget process.
It's gonna be through the budget process, it's gonna be through the budget process, it's gonna be through what we have in the BCS right now, and the reevaluation of the priorities based on the needs. Right? The available funding. And then the available funding. Anything else? Okay, the next one. Reassess our 10-year financial projections. I think we should talk about our tax cap, right? And how can we project our tax cap? Applying the fund balance and the application of the fund balance, kind of both of those would be good. You know, when's our goal to get basically rid of the giant fund, you know, the general fund balance that we have.
Yeah.
That we've been saving. Yeah, we had the 10-year plan.
We gotta just update it.
We just have to update it. Yeah. Okay, which I'm sure we can. And maintaining the tax cap. Okay. Next one, community engagement, celebrate students and staff. I mean, measurable is the monthly at meetings.
Yep.
Monthly at board meetings, through social media. Newsletter.
Also try to maybe somehow incorporate some of what we do like within our town, like within maybe different businesses or something, like showcasing stuff that we're doing within the district throughout the town.
Are you referring to what Lisa did with the students that were working in community participation with the special ed program?
Like us posting at a local community.
Like art or something, and it's at a local,
Like the library.
like the library or another business, like a restaurant or like, we don't have, I was trying to think if we have like a coffee house or something, but just like showcasing our students or things that we're doing within the district beyond just here in the meetings. 'Cause I think here once a month is great, or at the monthly meeting, but if we can try to just build that whole like Penn Hud Sale of Pride about the entire district.
I think it's more so, yes, I agree with you. And a lot of times the reason people come here and we invite them is because they've done something amazing elsewhere, right? So I think it's just maybe telling a story, but more holistically.
Sure. I mean, I like your idea though, like, if we could find a restaurant that would put our students' art up, and like, we can then publicize that. Our art up is at so-and-so for the month of October. You know, when you dine in, you'll get to see the art projects of the middle school.
And I think last year they brought out some of the student work to one of the coffee shops in Peekskill, and it was there for a little bit. So we are doing these things. I just think it's more I think we're doing it. I think the staff does do this with their students' work. I mean, the kids paint the library, paint the post office every winter, but I don't think we don't share it enough internally, all these different things. So it needs to
Just be
be,
more like, I think, maybe just be more intentional with making sure that we are showcasing what we're doing.
Anything else? Yeah, that's. All right.
improve communication with all stakeholders,
So through.
Well, this would be the strategic plan goal. You look at this, we have to look at what the strategic plan says here. Because it's outlined.
Are we gonna survey or do any thought exchanges with them?
Around communication.
Also, not just improve, I think we need to really include. So like the last year, we started to do things like yes. Yeah. Like our meet and greets and we're
Maybe instead of the word improve, you could just put increase. I don't know, you can always increase. I don't know if you necessarily need to say now improve, because you have been putting a lot of avenues out, and we will continue to do that.
yeah.
Meet and greets. That's good.
That's it for board goals, district goals, sorry. Yeah.
I guess one of the things just with strategic plan is our DEI initiatives. Like, I don't feel like we covered that in either of these.
So is there a specific district goal that,
I would like to see our DEI policies put in place so that I can be, you know, how we get to.
We're there. That's our goal under policy.
We add that in one of our.
okay, that, so adding policy is a board goal, not a district goal. When we think of district goals, it's something that we want to see the district doing. The board goals are what should the board
I think
specifically.
that's important for our district.
Oh, we have to do the policies.
We have to create the DEI policy.
Right.
Correct.
So is that,
You want to add that as a SMART goal to our policy updates or policy?
Well, I think it should be a district goal because we've been, I mean, one of our pillars in strategic planning was DEI, and nowhere is it incorporated.
Wasn't a strategic, there is no DEI pillar. It is shared decision making.
yeah,
And DEI is in all four pillars captured DEI initiative. So each of the four pillars have it in that. That's how it was designed. So, I mean, clearly it's been an important piece. I think what we're missing is tying together the work that those pillars did and how it's going to be implemented. That's part of the strategic plan implementation process.
Let's put out the board goal. So how can we incorporate that and the strategic into our district-wide goal?
what if we could do it under community engagement somewhere, something a little bit more driven?
Well, we talked about,
sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, Parent Square has the DEI component in there, like Benita mentioned, the reason that they chose that was because you can immediately translate it to any language, right? That brings in, inclusivity.
So maybe we just need, when we spell out why we like increase communication amongst families, non-English speaking families.
Right, because we're not just looking to increase communication, we might want to also consider how do we increase engagement? Right,
Why
because
don't
we
we
can
just put-
talk at people forever, but we want to increase engagement.
We're talking about improving test scores and everything. Why don't we stick it in advanced educational equity?
Under student achievement.
Under student achievement.
Okay, one thing at a time. The first one is, so, let me go, hold the thought, Seth, please. What was your, where am I putting this?
I just thought of when we were talking about
language.
DEI, right, and the
Where-
languages, community, improve communication, that one. Maintain and increase, improve.
That's why I said we have to go look, I wrote strategic plan pillar 3 and 4. So we have to go back and look at what I guess I didn't say it out loud, I wrote it down, sorry. I want to go back and look at what strategic plan pillars 3 and 4 have outlined. And we can tie that into the SMART goal.
But I think we also, it's not just about communicating, because I feel like we, like, everybody
Right,
learned.
communication and engagement.
But just like our Friday blast to all these from all these schools, right? We were communicating, We want the communication, but that's not always it, right? We want it to just be engagement,
Yes,
not just communication.
right. And that's where Tamika is saying,
Right.
within pillars 3 and 4, a lot of the work that we discussed and did there
Mhm.
was about engagement, communication,
With the
the
entire
DEI
community.
piece, making sure that we're reaching all of our stakeholders, make sure we're reaching people that speak different languages, family that speak different languages.
Mhm.
That's all part of that. So if we go back and we look at that, when we finish writing this, we should be able to find what the SMART goals would be tied to the DEI piece for that. Does that make sense? And then,
Number 5, the one with community engagement, we had talked about celebrations. I think we were just now looking at celebrations academically. We also include like cultural celebrations, so like if schools are doing things during the month for different cultures, that they come and bring that to board meetings as well, so that we are looking at all the cultures in our schools.
or having, I remember you talked about having some sort of
Didn't the
event
high
at a
school
school.
just do this?
The high school does a lot of this. And again, the high school does a ton of this. They have P&L programs. They bring in, I mean, they had a Cinco de Mayo festival last year that's incredible. That the kids,
I just think it's not showcased.
right, it's not showcased in our board meetings, but it is showcased online
Within the schools.
within the school.
I was gonna say within the schools, I think if you're not in the high school, I didn't know about any of that, unfortunately, so I.
Yeah, and we've only opened to high school students, right? So.
But even maybe putting pictures up,
They did, when they
They're
did
what?
the PTA, when
Yeah.
the PTA came, that's how I remember it. They had pictures of what they did.
Maybe
Around
on Parent
DEI.
Square, we can showcase
Good idea.
the, right? We could like do a little post of what went on in our school this week or this month or.
So would that be part of the newsletter that goes out on a weekly basis too? So you could include what high school did, that would be highlight from the high school with pictures, for the newsletter.
Right. I have written down here from our retreat, celebrations of the community,
Right.
that's it.
right?
Yeah. I think we missed that when we were just doing this, but yeah, we did talk about that.
Okay.
And that's also tied to the strategic plan. It's just the wording and how we do it. But it isn't really for us to, we have to set the SMART goal, but it's up to the district to figure out how we make this happen. Right?
Perhaps around professional development, we could do diversity and inclusion training for the teachers.
They do it,
Step.
so they do it already. Margaret, I'm sorry, you're on the spot, but some of this stuff is already in frontline, their work, some of it's required, correct? We talked a little bit about this in strategic plan. What is required for them to do for PD, for DEI training?
We have not had anything required for staff yet. I believe the high school did bring someone in and his name escapes me. No,
The high
Paul,
school
I think
did,
it was
yeah.
Paul, somebody.
You'll hit them in spring too.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But we have not formalized anything in the district, nor have we worked with an outside consultant or firm to establish that. I don't know what happened with the DEI policy. I know I got something for the board to look at, but I don't know what happened with that. It was intended to be part of the strategic plan rollout.
We're getting there.
Yeah, so that's where,
Jeremy, Amelia and I work.
that's where we left it, right? So that's interesting because, not formally,
What was
but
the question?
Question was, is there any DEI embedded in curriculum in your schools right now?
so informally, I would say our ELA staff has looked at books that were more appropriate and more inclusive of our population. We have not looked at, and it was interesting because we just had a conversation about equity-based assessment with someone. And we have not, again, formalized anything, but that is a place that we need to go. Absolutely.
And I mean, we are definitely doing, the high school librarian is working on an equity audit of our.
That is her doctoral
Yeah, she's
dissertation.
working on that for
Yes.
the high school. So how do we incorporate all of this? Help me out, guys.
Well, I think your professional development, you have the teachers and the staff's input on the type of DEI training that they would like to have through their committees. I mean, I just don't want to pick someone and bring in, I think the teachers and the staff really need to actually help pick what kind of training they would like to see.
Yeah, and the high school piece was, it happened at the high school last year. It happened sort of because of multiple things that happened and then were identified, and then we brought in someone to work with the students and the staff at the high school last year. Yeah. And that, I mean, that was.
But I mean, these committees,
It
it
needs
needs
to
to
be
be
an
ongoing.
He was supposed to come back, wasn't he?
Yes.
And you're right, it needs to be K-12.
Yep. I mean, I think one of the biggest things we hadn't been doing at Hendrick Hudson is all working together, right? So we're now in a place where a lot of these things will come together. Once we have site-based teams, shared decision-making, the plan, the strategic plan in motion, all the principals meeting regularly together,
Committees.
the committees, the administrators meeting regularly, all of this is gonna fall into place. So we have to just figure out how to articulate that here, correct?
Yes.
So
There was something Steph said.
Steph said about the equity, because I think what you both said, Margaret and Stephanie, was about the
Advanced educational equity.
advanced educational equity.
By continuously monitoring and improving the UPK through 12 structure of our.
So we're doing the curriculum.
But the teachers need input.
What did Margaret say? She said equity evaluations, assessments.
Oh, equity and assessment, since the conversation you had with the consultant the other day.
Does that cover? Okay, and then, so we're down to board goals to consider. And I'm not mentioning curriculum up here because I think that as a goal, I think that is part of this and it goes along with the committee work. I don't know where we put that because we're already establishing. I think it's funny because we're already working on all of these.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
So, but you want to capture it all.
Yeah, we have to somehow take credit for all the plans that we already have, either done or have in the loophole.
Yeah, no, seriously, but I don't see where all these committees that we're establishing.
I think some of them were
Yeah.
PD.
Yeah.
right? I think
Engagement.
engagement,
Right.
but I think we should capture the other, the community, the curriculum committee review committee is important. And we want to make sure that that sticks. Where would that go?
Would that go in with number one?
Yeah,
When you're talking about the structure,
Okay.
I also feel like the word structure, I think Alexis was touching on it before we think of physical, like place, but the structure could also include the program.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I got it. Okay, got it. Gotcha, perfect. That's everything. That's everything. Okay, now the board goals.
So this is kind of what I heard from everybody that evening. The number one is obviously finding a great new fabulous superintendent to lead the district, which we're going through the process now. Second, zero-based budget, forecasting 10-year projections. The third is policy updates, collaboration, and community. They're kind of tied together because our policy, while it's driven from multiple places, we need to bring the community in on the conversation, which we can do through this great shared decision-making that we've already established this evening and the committees that follow. As Eric has mentioned, there's ridiculous amount of policy updates, so this is a major goal. It's maybe number 2, it should be. Examine the district as a whole, physically and programmatically. So this is the board's part of what we were talking about on the district goals, right? We have physical facilities that we need review, restructuring, are people moving, are different grades in different places, and programmatic. How do we continuously, how do we examine that and make improvements there? And then the last one I have written down is identify and implement, I don't know what I wrote.
Strategic plan.
Yes, it's strategic plan.
There you go.
So the first one, I don't know that there's too much to say here other than,
Yeah, it's in process.
it's in process, right?
I don't think.
So we,
Continue the process on.
yeah, continue the process. So. Yeah.
Identify, hire.
Good. Anyone have anything that they want to add there that we're not thinking of? Or is there anything, let me back up. Is there any board goal that I didn't mention? Anything that anybody can think of? All right, so then we'll work to kind of elaborate and perfect the zero-based budget. We have the option of doing rollover budget versus a zero-based budget. I think every year we've rolled over and the board has discussed or shown interest in zero-based budgeting. So that we as new board members better understand the funds and also how do we plan?
Right, yeah, this will be driven by the finance committee.
Mm-hmm.
And probably we should talk about how we want to present budgeting.
Right, yes.
Didn't we say Saturdays? Yeah, like we want to do it in intervals or.
Right, so so I think the goal is to
The line by line public discussion on.
right, and change the way we present the budget to the community. So we were doing it at every board meeting, doing a department.
Doing it Saturday and or evening.
And I'm gonna give credit to Ally Philbin, our past trustee, who recommended this wholeheartedly.
Wherever she is.
Yeah, wherever you are, Ally, I hope you're watching us. It really honestly is very overwhelming to have a meeting, talk about one budget, then you have questions, but then at the next meeting, you're ready on to the next. You know, if we can just spend the time and whether you do it in 2 or 1, and just go through it. People don't have to sit there all day, they can watch it at their leisure, or just check on that one section that they want to hear about.
Is there training that needs to be done?
For this?
Yeah, not to you guys, not for us, but no, to
No.
the staff, to the staff.
No, they'll be stepped through the process.
Okay.
Each
You
will
have
be
creative
explained where
budgets?
they, I think I mentioned it already that as early as October, there's requisitions that teachers would be doing, or direct them as.
Because it has to
what they should
start.
Be looking at, and
It
it's
has
to
to
start
start
now,
now, it has to start at classroom level.
and then build up to the principal eventually central office to the board and the public. And
Is it
I mean,
okay that this is a board goal and not a district goal?
No, I don't see it.
Well, we approved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when we present, it's presented to the community.
Like it's yours.
Yeah.
Just checking. Okay, and policy updates. How can we write this one?
Hold on, I'm gonna tell you. I think I'm gonna add under, reassess our 10-year financial projection. I'm gonna establish zero-based budgeting. Right?
Oh, right, the district goals, good, kind of.
So just very simply, we are gonna do continual policy updates and revisions, as needed. We're going to establish the SMART goal here. I guess what we're gonna do is we're going to work with NISBA and get our policy book cleaned up. It's gonna be like a policy audit.
I was just gonna say, if we use word audit,
Yeah.
more policies, see what needs to be retired, revised, or created.
Perfect.
And maybe you can create like so they're gonna do the audit, maybe we can create a burn down curve, so when those will be done.
I was gonna say, do we want to set a goal like by the end of
That's what I'm
June 30th, 2024, we're gonna be fully up to date?
right, that's why I think we might.
Can we be?
Don't plan on that. Just-
No, they said 10 weeks.
Well, they always want us to put dates on it.
Don't plan by the-
Yeah,
There's the two different plans that you guys.
We're gonna do the most,
Top tier.
the top tier plan that we're in need.
It's 10 weeks.
And I think it's 10 weeks. So the process from when they start to finish is about, can be 10 to 12 weeks.
That's just the review.
That's
That's
just
the review.
yes, then we won't be able to.
That's not presenting
Yeah.
and doing first reading, second reading of all of them as well.
We need to, I think we need
So
to.
I don't
burn
think,
down.
I don't wanna,
You can't.
I think when we say measurable, I don't wanna put the word goal.
Right.
Because that could be an unattainable, realistic goal. I think that we should just say that we're doing it and that we will continue.
I think we need to have some kind of a timeline and we will. So I'm
Well,
gonna
these
say,
goals
So can the
are
timeline be to identify?
Right, establish.
That, yeah, like,
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Because these goals are for this
Mhm.
school year.
can I would also like, now that I'm in this, we're fully immersed in this. As a part of the policy update, I think we have to set up like some type of procedure, like internally, because I think, not a policy, I want the staff to be able to propose policy to us in a.
But isn't that
Like
those
the-
committees? Aren't
Yes.
Things will perfectly.
Yeah, because right now we haven't had any way to do that other than going now directly to you, which is great. But then we also, I have like 90 unread emails right now, right? Like things get lost in the shuffle. So I don't know if we need to.
You're gonna be pretty
want like
busy
a-
within this, what we do for this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we have plenty
I've never seen everybody get through that in a year. I doubt you will. Because it was so.
Now it's on.
Now
Now
you're-
it's on.
I'm gonna do this. I'll be watching at home sometime.
Oh, you're not gonna come every single day.
Good idea, policy at school.org.
So the staff can reach out.
One way to do it is to say that you'd like to deal with, say, pick a number, 3 or 4 per month.
Well, right now we're at 4.
I know, so just say that,
3 or 4.
because it's.
No, you're trying to limit us.
No, I'm not. I just know that you're gonna have 60 or 100 to do.
I
If you
feel like
think you're
we
gonna
can-
do that in a year, you're not.
I feel like we could do 8 at a time.
Okay, all
Let's
right.
put at least though, at least 3 to 4.
I think. Yeah, we're on the same page.
Okay. Examine district as a whole, physical and programmatic. So I think this is also where some of the strategic plan initiatives come in here as well.
Obviously, we're gonna do the vote in December.
And we're gonna go through the educational process, right? September, October, November. That's part of the examining.
Mhm.
The physical piece we can tie to the facilities review.
Okay. And to the eventual budget vote, because you have to make a determination by then. So there's another benchmark. The programmatic follows the same. it'll have an effect on budget.
I guess we've talked a lot about like the future of Marine, like what do our schools need? What do we want our facilities? What do we need in order to keep up with that idea of like, how do we get students? What are the student needs and how do we get them engaged? But how does the board do that? That's what we have to define in our goals. Well, I think we need to do probably like Stephanie to say, some surveys,
I like the thought exchange.
at building levels.
But the
Where-
thought exchange gets
But
real,
that's not the board, right?
it's not.
So we have to remember, these are goals for us. Like, let me remind you, last year, one of our goals was like creating a document. You know what I mean? Like, these are actually obtained by us, like the policy update. That's something we do.
Well, when you
So-
examine the district as a whole, physical or programmatic, you are gonna have presentations brought to you. So when they get the students input of like what courses they want to see at the high school. We're already doing this through the committees too. We have the curriculum committee. We have the facilities committee. I mean,
Again, just to remind, the perception data is part of the third session and it's ongoing. And I just got samples today to send to the board. I didn't want to confuse the number too much, so I didn't bring it with me. But you can look at the sample there and then you can see how the generic questions tease out what's on people's minds. And this is all data-based, and he brings that then in November to the district, to those teams to say, this is what your community is saying, this is what your students are saying. It breaks it down by male and female. It really has a lot of interesting data. And then you try to match that up against your procedures and practices and say what needs to be tweaked in order to make this better. That's what the whole idea of continuous improvement is about. So there is perception data in that piece.
Okay.
Also, like from the technology side, I could say like we have ed tech expos that I take teachers to, where other regional areas that they present like on new ideas like esports, for example, maker spaces, active learning spaces, like where do you go take your school to the next level, right? So those are venues like you can be part of, because not everything comes from within. It also has to be from what are other school districts doing that we can improve upon.
and I think AI and how we are, and I hate to like. AI is definitely going to change the way schools educate and how we prepare students for the future. And I think we really need to be on top of that.
Disagree, but there's a lot that needs to be put in place, right? As far as like, again, I'm gonna bring up model schools again, because that's where a lot of the information that I get, because I don't know what other school districts are doing, right? Like, so in that venue is where we say, okay, last time everything was showcased about esports, right? Like which school districts are doing esports, what colleges are looking for, what kind of, colleges are giving out scholarship for students who are in esports. Like sometimes when I talk to people, we don't even know that exists, and parents don't know that exists. Like Innovation Day, when I had it, there was the esports company that came out and talked about it with our students and parents. So those are kind of the venues that I look for to say like what is out there that we can bring into the district for around technology for sure.
Maybe we need to have a goal for professional development as a board. Because
That
you
was
go,
one of our goals last year.
and we did it,
And you're even have the session.
One of our
coming up.
goals last year was like to,
What is it?
are they up? Hold on. I have to find them. This is another goal for Lisa. What, redesign?
One of my goals, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. How do I find that? The board
I
page?
think.
I think it's under our district Board of Education goals. So one of the goals, because here, no,
No? This is them. All right, well, I thought there was, maybe it was a district goal, I don't know. I thought it was the board goal last year. I thought it was too. For which then? To help board members. Offerings of, development work is, I think so too, but this looks like the district goals, right? This looks like this.
Oh, yeah, those are the district goals. Those are not the board goals.
That's right, these are the district goals. The district, yeah, that's fine. So our board will just never got, they're in board docs.
So then our last one was strategic plan, basically making sure, right, that we are paying attention to the implementation of strategic plan. We do that through our involvement in those leadership meetings.
We have continual leadership meetings, and check-ins.
And you have your sellers, each of you are involved in a variety of committees.
And we're
So
going
you'll
to,
be monitoring.
and we are establishing other committees to monitor this. Site-based teams they're gonna monitor this. We just want to make sure that that work continues to be implemented. So if there's holdups that surround the board or things that we can do to help, or costs that we need to review, all of that. We don't have any of this, we don't really have a lot of that information yet. A lot of the stuff within the strategic plan really isn't going to cost us a lot of money. It's a matter of prioritizing and getting the right staff involved to get things done. So, for example, it was not, communications, pillar 3 was really centralized around our administrators, right? So it was easier for us to get those goals set because we had access to our administrative team who's not in classrooms all day long. But pillars 1 and 2 are going to require a lot of work on the staff side and the guidance department, the principal. It looks different.
Should our goal then be to kind of reference the strategic plan, almost like a checklist, and just make sure that the accountable parties are implementing, or?
Let me make it a quarterly check-in.
I mean, that's something we can incorporate into like a superintendent's report, that they just talk about where they're at different points.
Yeah. Yeah, we can report on this and we can have other, and as it becomes appropriate, we can bring others into.
Yeah.
From the outside. I think one of the things that is part of pillar 3 was having a board, like having a student sit with us. So we're in the process of all we have to do is write the questions, do the interview, and get the interest. So like it's just a matter of just prioritizing, checking it off, having someone in charge of balancing it. So we'll do quarterly check-ins and keep track of that. And then, of course, the DEI piece within the pillars will be part of that. We just have to make sure that they're measurable. And we are working on, just so everyone knows, part of this goes to this and the policy, is Jeremy, Amelia, and I are working with Carmen and Dennis, and we have draft policies for the DEI policy, and we're hoping to get that up in October. Is that the goal, guys? In October. So it's coming, and it's coming out of the strategic plan. And then from there, once the policy is made, there will be a plan in place similar to the shared decision-making policy.
And so we can, in between now.
How specific do I have to get with all of that? How specific do I have to get with all of what I just said on here?
Hold on.
Right, so that doesn't have to be long.
So we'll come back,
To the next, not the next.
not the next one, which is gonna be on a Tuesday. But I don't want to confuse.
October 3rd.
Right, so our next board meeting is on September 20th. It is a work session that is open, obviously, to the public.
September 20th. Right, yes.
Yes. That is the meeting with Maurice,
Yeah.
right? And then after the 20th of September, our next meeting is gonna be on Tuesday, October 3rd, and that's because the high school has meet the teacher night on Wednesday the 4th. And on October the 3rd is when we will finalize our goals and make sure that everybody likes how they read and what they're made of, and then we can approve those.
And we're going to be putting up community forum, invites in
Our meet and greets.
meet and greets, I'm sorry, that's right, the meet and greets. The small group meet and greets where you meet with 2 or 3 of us at a time, that invitation will be coming out probably next week.
Is there any other new business?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. All right, if everyone's good, have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to close the meeting.
All in favor?